Attention both players! Are you bored of Mimi Hold Attack? Well, now you can do Brevey Hold Attack. Brevey is a Bolt and Frost hybrid Benediction unit. But how exactly does she work? Let's take a look. Similar to Yan Miao, Brevey introduces a dual-element weapon charge proc effect that increases damage taken, with a larger debuff in team play. This also overwrites Grievous, and is essentially a permanent debuff. She also has a similar mechanic that allows her to use the higher values between Volt and Frost base attack percent, and damage percent, while also giving both Frost and Volt resonance. Her weapon passive is Swift Cut, similar to Yulon and Fei Se, dealing additional discharge damage when casting a discharge, with its value ramping up over 15 seconds. As with all weapon passives, the total damage contribution of the effect is not significant at all, but it's a nice bonus. Brevey has one unique special effect. She increases the time limit of Bygone by 15 seconds, meaning you essentially have 10% more time and can do that much more damage. Especially on stages such as Sequentials 6 and 8, where there's a minute of downtime waiting for the boss to get out of bed. Those extra 15 seconds are worth way more. In Origin of War, Brevey gives 25 extra seconds to the whole team, up to 50 seconds in total for 2 copies of Brevey in the team. So, what exactly does she do for Volt and Frost comps? We'll start out with her skill, which grants a special buff. This buff increases Volt damage when Brevey is on field, and Frost damage by a smaller amount when Brevey is off field. Additionally, dealing damage equal to 100 times your attack gives you 1 stack of Met's Energy Wave, an instant cast damage skill up to 1 charge per 10 seconds. You can generate stacks off field, but can only use them when Brevey is on field. If the skill's buff expires, unused stacks get automatically consumed for 2/3 of their total damage. How about her on-field potential? Brevey's hold attack clocks in at over 50% more than Mimi's, so including her on-field buff, her damage potential is quite high, even if her total skill damage isn't as high as Mimi. When she is off-field, Mets will continue to attack, and use the element of the current weapon, though the damage is much less significant. That's pretty much everything in terms of her DPS kit. But what about Benediction? For Benediction, you can attack towards a teammate outside of combat to designate them as your bestie, indicated by Mets circling around them. The bestie will have an aura around them that constantly heals nearby targets, while also providing a small final damage buff. Brevey's skill in Benediction has a much lower cooldown, but you do not gain the additional Met's Energy Wave skills. The skill instead provides AoE healing, with additional healing to your bestie. It also cleanses debuffs, including Grain Bite, from teammates, while also granting them 10 seconds of debuff and control immunity. Her Discharge also grants this immunity effect, while turning trash mobs into Mets for a short duration. A more in-depth analysis on her healing capabilities and comparisons to other healers can be found on my Benediction guide. Check the link in the description for that one. Next, we'll move on to her advancements. We'll examine the strength of her advancements in two separate teams. A Vault team with Mimi and Nanyan, and a Frost team with Ling Han and Nanyan. Remember, this is not a comparison between the two teams, but rather how much Brevey's advancements benefit each team. Her A1 grants healing to her hold attack, while also passively healing your bestie when they drop below 25% HP and giving them temporary immunity, and also preventing lethal damage for them up to once per 60 seconds. This advancement doesn't provide any DPS value, but is quite useful for sustain and for benediction comps. Her A3, when not under benediction resonance, allows you to accumulate Met's energy waves up to 3, which does next to nothing for Vault, but is quite useful for Frost, which doesn't have the luxury to switch to Brevey every 10 seconds to use the stacks. It also grants a 10% Vault and Frost damage boost versus bosses. But note that the cactus does not count as a boss for this effect. For Benediction Resonance, you get an extra charge of the skill, and it recovers additional health to your bestie. This advancement adds quite a good amount of value. Next is our A5, which increases the damage of Met's energy wave as well as the offhand Met's attacks by 30%. As neither of these are the primary damage of each comp, the value of this advancement is not that high. Finally, her A6 increases the Vault and Frost buffs from her skill, while also increasing the damage buff from the Met's Halo Benediction effect from 5% to 20%, while also adding 25% Shatter. Because her skill's multiplier is unique, this is a valuable advancement, more so for Vault. Overall, her advancement margin is on the lower side, with most of the damage value being in the A3 and A6 effects. For supports, A1 is sufficient, but A6 dramatically increases the team damage buff. Now, let's look at our matrices. Brevey's 2-piece increases all elemental damage and additionally increases outgoing healing by a huge amount after using a discharge, all working in the offhand. Her 4-piece increases final damage after using her skill and also increases all attack. When Benediction Resonance is active, instead increase attack of yourself and all nearby allies by a smaller amount. Oh, the 4-piece matrix also comes with a bonus effect that automatically holds down left click for you so you can let go of the mouse and your character will keep performing the hold attack. Dang, do they really think both players needed that out of all things? Anyway, how does her matrix strength compare to others? Here's a chart showing the standalone values of matrices in a Vault comp. Note that these all represent off-field values, except for the Samir and Shiro entry. As a standalone base, Brevey's matrices are stronger than even non-Yin's, though I can't put enough of an emphasis on standalone. Because Brevey's matrices have almost a whopping 40% attack on them, this value heavily dilutes the attack percent on other matrices such as that of non-Yin or Robilia, while matrices such as Mimi's have much less diluted multipliers. Tian's matrix, which recently arrived in the standard pool, is comparable to an offside slot of a 3-star Hollow Ursula when at 0-star, and comparable to a 0-star Mimi matrix at 3-star. Next, let's talk about the team comps and how to play them. The first team we'll cover has Mimi and Nonyin alongside Brevey main DPS. In this comp, we'll use Brevey's trait, with Quant 2 and Bubblegum as our relics. The matrices will simply be the respective limited matrix sets. For Titan stats, normal attack damage is preferred over skill damage, but ideally, you have a mix of both due to how the scaling on Titan stats works. Start out with your relics, and then use Brevey's skill. Discharge to Nonyin. Use her skill, then jump cancel Mimi's discharge and double tap her skill. And switch to Brevey and use her hold attack. Dump any mech's energy waves as they come, as long as your coolant buff is up. Right as coolant comes off cooldown, use Brevey's skill again, and discharge to Nonyin while popping coolant, and the rotation repeats from here. The goal of this rotation is to get Mimi's skill and as many energy waves within the coolant window as possible, and to also be on Brevey right after casting Mimi's skill in order to maximize its damage using Brevey's on-field buff. Sure, your Nonyin clone will bleed out, but it doesn't do any damage anyway, so that's fine. Next, we'll cover a Frost team, using Ling and Nonyin. We'll use Ling trait, with Bubblegum and Thalassic Heart as relics, as well as their respective matrices. For Titan stats, normal attack damage is ideal, but again, it's good to run at least one line of skill damage. Start out with your relics and Brevey's skill. Discharge to Ling and use her skill, and then discharge to Nonyin and use hers. Switch back to Ling and use her hold attack until reaching 2 full charge bars, and then discharge to Nonyin. Switch to Brevey and use her hold attack while dumping all energy wave charges. Then use her skill and discharge to Ling using her skill before discharging back to Nonyin. Switch back to Ling and the rotation repeats from here. The goal of this rotation is to discharge to Nonyin every 15 seconds to maintain the powerful dot effect, and every other rotation, refresh Brevey's skill and use her charges before they expire. Now let's compare the new Brevey comps to the rest of the meta. Note that this graph uses the old rotation for the previous vote comp, as the discharge bug on Nonyin was fixed and is no longer worth quick swapping for. Also important notice, note that this chart is for damage per minute, meaning this graph will not show the value of Brevey's additional 15 seconds of time given in Bygone. You'd need a total damage chart for that, and that would look like this. Anyway, the Brevey vote comp is a notch above the old comp, especially when you consider that you have 15 extra seconds for Bygone. For Frost, the expected baseline performance is higher than the Yulon Quick Swamp comp, but in real combat, while the Yulon comp benefits from higher resist shred as well as Fiona's execute, it suffers from a difficult rotation and lack of shatter, and again, you don't have the extra 15 seconds that the new Brevey comp has. At a Dolphin investment, the DPM of Brevey Volt and Frost comps are pretty similar, but also pretty similar to all of the old non-yin comps. Even factoring the extra time Brevey gets, the total damage is a bit under the triple altered and Yan Miao comps. At an F to B plus investment, the gap between comps closes a lot, and the Brevey comps are actually on the stronger end when you take into account their extra time. Finally, at an A1 investment level, the Volt and Frost comps become unbalanced once again, in favor of Frost, as losing Ling Han's A3 doesn't hurt as much as losing A3 Mimi. However, the overall power of Brevey comps is fairly competitive. Brevey is a very straightforward character in how she works for Volt, Frost, and Benediction comps, but despite that, still brings power to the table. Though, compared to old comps, much of this power is within the extra 15 seconds given to bygone challenges. At the end of the day, though, who can say no to a cute magical girl on their team? I'll see you all next time! God, these glasses do not want to stay in place. Goodbye.